Hello and welcome to part 3 of step 27. Let's see if we can get this finished up here real quick. So, now that we've got this particular part done and we have this glued on and it looks right. And once again, I'm not going to glue the main winches on at this point in time, just for the ease of painting. But again, just so you know, this would be... If I was building this normally, I would have pre-painted or pre-primed at least with black the top part of the winches, this part right here, especially underneath, pre-painted that black, and then I would have glued that on top of these winches, which I also would have pre-primed. So everything's black, and the idea behind that is that if I glue this on, and I would prime this as well before I glued it on, but I would glue this on, and then I would hit it with whatever color I want. Those areas that I just can't get with paint are going to be black. They're going to be heavily shadowed, kind of like on the real vehicle. Helps a lot in conveying some depth to the area, and it's simple in just the fact of using black. So that's my reasoning behind it. But let's get these fenders done. So on the fenders, you can see there's a indent here and a couple of proud parts right there. So the indent, pretty simple. Just have to fold this piece right here, glue it on. There's a nice fold line on it. Get this knocked out. And actually, I want to fold it, but it's got to fold over. So that's when there it is. So when you want to be able to see the line to fold it, and you want to be able to fold it in the right direction, so that's when you use the end. Now that I've got it, I'm just going to make sure that I've got it lined up the way I want it. There we go. Take my broad part of the forceps, boom. Nice 90, simple, done. And glue that on. Here's one of the things you'll notice. The size of this raised part is not equal to the size of this part right here. However, as you can see in this photo down here, you want to have this covered and not more. So you want overhang off of the part, like so, rather than overhang over the part. Let me glue this on and show you what I'm talking about. And if you ever have questions about this stuff, another thing you can do is look at primary sources, photos, things like that. Now, my guess is the reason for this is that those simulated bolt heads right here, to attach it to the fender and to attach it to the frame. That's my guess. We'll find out if I'm right. Next, these small photo etch parts right here. These are support legs of some kind. These are going to be sticking out. And just at a certain angle, so I can just use the tip of this right there. Flip it over. And what I'm doing is I'm giving it about a 30 degrees here and 30 degrees down here. I'm assuming that they're going to eventually end up oh, okay. And here we actually have, so you want a 30 degrees on the one and a 90 on the other. So we will. Let me see if it matters on either one, because the one that I was just doing doesn't really want to go 90. Okay, so there's a heads up right there. When doing these, pick one, and you're just going to have to really give it a good wallop, because it's got to be 90 off of this. Give it a good bend, and then about 30 with the other one. That's close. Doesn't look like there's a difference as to which one is done, just that it needs to be done. So I'm going to do the 90 first. And then a roughly 30-degree second. There we go. And it looks like the bends, the 30 degrees are the ones that get glued on there, and the 90 degrees are for attaching to whatever this is going to be attached to. And they go down. This is what I'm seeing on the instructions. Sure, there'll be some adjusting that needs to be done, but that gets the part done, then that gets the part done. Now, the one nice thing about this build as of this moment is I am currently reobtaining my Class A license. And so all of this stuff makes more sense as far as where it's placed and what it does and so on and so forth. Like these, I am assuming are proper mud guards behind the tires, rather than splash guards. But these might be splash guards, because splash guards are permanently affixed to the vehicle, and in a way that they're more than just replaceable mud guards. They are literally attached to the vehicle, but they're not part of the framing or the coaming that's inside of the vehicle. This next one is a little bit more tricky. These smaller ones still get done like the other one, 90 and 30. So 90, 30, 90, oops. That's right. Don't mind me. I'm doing it right. Just looking at the instructions a little bit backwards. But anyways, that's close enough. So it looks like these get the same treatment, these longer ones. So do the 30. Yep, that looks right. And I am doing this to make sure that things are bending correctly. It looks like this is going to be attached to something, so that little bit of detail is right there. This is going to be attached to something, and that little bit of detail is there. It looks good to me. So 90 that way, about 30 this way. All right. So the orientation of the part is this way. The longer pieces of brass are up there. And again, it's the 30-degree angles that are getting attached. And yeah, it's not easy getting everything to want to stick the first time. I got it. I do fully understand that photo etch takes time. However, in my opinion, I think that in the end you get an excellent result too. There's no way that you could have these hangers in plastic where they wouldn't end up getting broken or being short shot or brittle or just a million different problems. So even though I know this takes a lot of time and patience and energy, I appreciate the benefit that it gives. I also appreciate that even though I'm doing the angles towards, or as the instructions say, that, sorry, just off. There may be some adjustment necessary, but just to give you an idea, that's pretty square up. I mean, that looks pretty good if I were to put it flat down. But I'm going to set that aside to dry. Now I'm going to mark over on this. Once again, this is the smaller winch. I could not locate my personal smaller material, smaller than this, for putting on this, so I'm just going to go with the given material, the string. It is a little fuzzy, so what I'm going to do is, I've got a brand new bottle of super glue. I'm going to, actually I think I'm going to use the black rather than this super thin. The thin will get up in. The thing about this black super glue that I like, with that little bit of vinyl in it, is that it doesn't run through the threads of fibers nearly as much as the regular thin super glue. Now, to my knowledge, okay, there is a difference. So let's take a look at this. Right here, considering the direction of these parts, this right here, this fatter end goes to this winch body, gear, shaft, whatever you want to call it. Now it's important because this goes this way, so you want to wind this the proper direction so that it doesn't end up in, well, like I showed you before, in the wrong direction. But you don't have to put a lot of glue on. I just put a little coating on the one side. Yeah, and then there's the usual problem of, okay, how do I get this stuff to stick? What a pain in the butt. So, using my forceps, I'm just loosely putting that on, holding it, kind of tweaking it over. And remember, I already kind of cut that top piece off that I'm going to have to put back on. Now this is a little arduous, but this is what gets it on. And then as soon as, see, the thing is as soon as I know it's stuck, or if I want, I can switch this over this way. I can start again, I'm sorry if this isn't exactly all in shot. Now, because I put that glue on there, I'm going to run this like that. Now, for the main gluing, I'm going to take my regular super glue. This is going to penetrate. And kind of douse it so that it does penetrate in. Like so. And there is a reason for this, because as you notice, there's a lot of fuzzies on there and things like that. Next thing I'm going to do is put a little accelerator on it. I'm going to do that off the screen just so I don't spritz something I don't want to get spritzed. Let that do its thing. There, it's set. Take that off. So it looks kind of the mess right now. And it's pretty hot from the chemical. Excuse me, I lost the cover to my glue. There we go. I like to keep my glue covered so I don't let it get bad. Now, one thing that I'm going to do is just very quickly run this flame. Now, if you do this, be very careful because it's an open flame and this is plastic that'll burn and other things that'll burn. But I'm doing this generally as safely and as quickly as I can. And as you can see, it just melts the string. I mean, it's not even burning it as much as melting it, but got that little tab on the end. Now let's say that you did this and you're like, oh, that looks so horrible. I hate how that looks. And we're going to have to see how this looks under paint to really notice. One, these things get dirty. You run them through a lot of, mud, muck, whatever, because you're pulling your vehicle out or doing whatever. They get gunk and grunk, and they're also well greased so that they stay semi-flexible for the turning and that. So they do not have a pristine appearance most of the time, unless it's something that's in cantonment or in a maintenance area where it's going to be taken care of on a daily basis. So now that I've got this all figured out, so this is going to be getting glued basically like that. What I want to do is pull just enough of it out, and you can do that with this even in the super glue, so that this is hanging down, because it's going to be hooked up like this. Alright, so we've done that. That's good. Everything looks good. So first thing I want to do is glue my bar back across here where it was. And as I said before, this is where I like having spare plastic because I can use that to help fill the gap. And gives me a nice tight fit that I want. It does take a little work. So that's there. That's there. There we go. Put a little more glue in there, soften it up. So that's done. Now, when I was looking at this, I noticed there was just a little bit of flash on this edge, so I want to clean that off. I don't absolutely have to, because when I put the glue on, that'll probably melt that away too. But glue this end on right here. glue this end on right here. Notice that it's directional. Like so. Now, at this point in time, it says to put duct. Well, it's just a little piece of wire. At this point in time, I'm not going to put it on because we've got to get this wired up, wired up over on this side. So, before I do anything regarding that, I'm going to take a look at how this is going to be hanging. Like so. And then I've got my winch wire end that I want to glue in there. So I just want to sit and look at this and see if I've got this in the configuration that I want. And here we're dealing with small parts. So fill that with glue. And more than anything, I'm just trying to get this to fit in there. Let that glue saturate the plastic so the plastic kind of comes around. And I'm sorry I'm not keeping this in the camera as usual. I tend to hold things a little bit closer to myself than I should. And again, this is a little bit difficult to deal with. So, dropping parts everywhere. But, just want to make sure that this little hole, the slot that we're using to glue this in, is on the opposite side of the out-facing part. This bar part. And that's so then you're hiding it rather than needing to fill it and what have you. So that's this part here. Here's the here's your identifying marks, but this goes in right here. There is no markings. You're just guessing where this hangs. And I'm going to put that on pretty much how I would expect. You want to have some clearance there so you can see what's going on. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not going on that way. It's going on this way. With the pips on this side piece here, D29, going straight up. So, my mistake. Thankfully, I have the length of rope to bend that down without issue. Still looks good. And now I'm just centering it. So I want it centered off the side. I want it centered basically between this edge right here and this edge right here. I think that looks pretty good. Knowing what I know about the upper winch, this is not in the way. So that makes sense. Now, we've got this small part right here, E8, that's going in this. And to the best of my knowledge, from what this looks like, if I'm not dropping everything, which I just did, these parts here that we're getting into, these really small detail parts, are even difficult to pick up with these fine tweezers. So it's good to have them oriented the direction you need. I'm going to say, if you look at the top of it, right here, it's got a kind of a cap with a wider flange on this side and a narrower flange on that side. It looks like the narrow flange is facing out. So it's kind of like the shape of an arrowhead with the arrowhead pointing out. That's what it looks like in the instructions. I'm just dropping that on that photo etch piece, and then I'm going to put glue in there, flood that in there to get that to stick. If I was really concerned about it, I would look at my 1:1 scale source. Now, the next piece goes in with what looks like a bump stop on the outside and the two tubes facing up. And it says that it goes in this way. There is a little slot, if you remember from when we glued this on in the last iteration of this, and there is a little peg on the back of this, so it just slides straight in. Easier said than done, I know. So there's the peg. Want it oriented correctly, so I've got it like this going in here, and because of it, that completely knocked the photo etch piece off. And it looks like the problem is that these two parts should tuck under this piece right here. So I would almost say when you're getting ready to do the photo etched piece, you've got to get this plastic piece wedged in there before you glue anything on. This is not great design, guys. See, these are the difficulties with the kit, that you need somebody to one guinea pig to go ahead and build the kit and find all this stuff. And things go bouncing around all over the place. I fully admit that. So what we're doing is trying to get these two pips up there, and it's a tight fit, so they're in there now. And then we're pushing there. So you want this piece in there like that. That's a tight fit. So you want to do that well before you glue this onto the side, even though the instructions tell you to do that beforehand. So I'm going to glue that up. Now I can use that as a positive for this. Okay, so this is what in the end it should look like. It should be all squarish that way. That part should be glued into there, sandwiching that photo etch piece in there with those two lines of it sticking up out. All right, so the only other part we've got is right down here. We've got photo etch part 9, and it's basically you got to curl it. So I'm just taking the one end of my forceps, wrapping it around. One side has the detail. There's a little tiny bolt or whatever The other side's flat. I'm just going to glue that in on here like it's a holder, but I'm not gonna reach the cable end around, just because I don't want to at this point. If that's something that's important to you, set it up beforehand so that you know you have enough material to do it, and then it'll look right. But okay, and actually it says that it hangs upside down on the bottom of this. So right in here. And again, you're dealing with very small parts. This is almost a Easter egg surprise detail. Now this is where I'm placing it, because that's where it looks like it goes as per the instructions, right on the bottom side of that winch assembly. And that kind of makes sense. I mean, that's where you might want to hang this normally, but a lot of people might not even know it's there. Next, this is going on next to where the ladder should be. So this is where the ladder attaches. This is where this piece attaches, right next to it. This I'm putting on because it goes above, not below. If I can get it to attach. And I admit, for all of us, feels like we should have friggin' 15 arms to get everything done. I'm gonna add just a tiny bit of glue in there to help that out. Next, on this front piece, this part K27 goes on. Now, the way it goes on is it's got like a cylinder head on this end and then a longer piece on that, and it looks like I still didn't get all of the, well, take a look at that. No, I cleaned it up right. It cleans up a little odd, but it's gonna punch in to this side hole like this. Let's see if that actually works. Now, what I'm going to do is put the glue on the plastic to start softening it up. I'm going to very gingerly hold this. I'm going to see if I can even get that to go. There it went. Okay, that's nice. And then I will apparently pick the part off with the glue. Okay, the nice thing is I know that this will fit. Now it's just a matter of messing with it until it does. Okay, there we go. So there is part K27 attached. That's on. And now I'm going to attach part F44. On mine, there wasn't really a bump for locating it in the hole. This one shows that there should be. And this is going to attach this square piece of wire. I'm just going to glue that on. I guess it looks like there's a little bit of flash or leftover, but I'm just gonna sand that down. Gentle. I'm going to glue this on like it belongs there, and I'm going to set the hole up so that when I do put that ring on, I'm putting it on left to right or front to back or whatever, so it isn't going to interfere with the box right next to it, if I can. Now again, I'm using the model glue to soften up the plastic to get it to go. Takes a little bit more work. I like that better than using super glue on everything because that's harder to clean up, in my opinion. So there's the overall look of it right there. I have not put the D-ring on there yet. And then these parts go on underneath so that, all right, so what I would do then is start to orient these pieces so that they are in the position on there. They're saying that these mounts right here go on there to hang. And that's all you have for right now. I'm going to hold off on mounting these until the next step just to make sure. But I've got them available. Let everything dry. No, I haven't attached that ladder yet, and we haven't forgotten about the cabling. And as I've done in the past, although I didn't come prepared for it this time, I will highlight anything that I miss in particular. In this case, I'm going to use a blue marker just so that I notice it going through and go, oh yeah, that's right, I have to add that in. I want to see how this all mounts up in step 28 or whatever so that I can figure out how this all orients in. I don't want to put this on and then find out that I'm off by 1/2 millimeter for lining up this photo etch piece. I'd rather put it all in at once. So with that in mind, let's see what happens with step 28 next time. Have a good one.